5,000 star systems? Is that all? No, there is more than that even. Over 7,000 when counting unconnected wormhole systems. And 20 to 50,000 players logged into this universe at any one time, sharing the same space in the same instance, all having an impact on the universe in some way. I find the challenge of explaining the impact of EVE Online extremely vexing, since there is so much. A common phrase around the EVE player community is, "EVE is real." No other game has a similar slogan. To me, the nature of EVE makes it something more than just a game. We EVE players use the phrase, "it's only a game," to console ourselves when things get nuts. The phrase is our security blanket, our coping mechanism. In EVE, we deal with real hard work, real relationships, real reputation, real friends, real enemies, real leaders or tyrants, and a myriad of other very real things. The list of the reality impacting aspects of EVE go on and on. Now, I've been told by you, the viewers, subscribers, and friends, that I'm a pretty good storyteller. I find all this constructive feedback extremely motivating, and in about 6 years of my EVE career, there are probably several good novels worth of content. I've been through a lot in my EVE career. Now, I'm not really a powerful or famous EVE player relative to certain others in the game, at least not at the time of the creation of this video. I'm a very average player in many respects, except for one key attribute. I am what others have called a content creator, which means I step forward in the crowd and find creative ways to have adventures which create stories that people will still tell even after several years. Ambition is an interesting emotion. Ambition on its own can create tyrants, but it can also create leaders. In my daily life, I like to consider humility an important strength, but when I first started EVE and was born as a capsuleer, ambition fueled the fire that would keep me from quitting, at least at the very beginning. Others who have ambition as a new player sometimes find themselves burning out quickly when their great expectations, perhaps born more out of ego than anything, are challenged and crushed. But so far, although I've taken breaks, the fire of my ambition was never extinguished. This leads me directly into the story of the birth of my main EVE character, Maximilien Bonaparte. Now, there have been both friends and enemies in my EVE career. I will be changing the names of perhaps one or two of these EVE characters out of respect, perhaps even a misguided sense of honor. I consider some of my old EVE enemies slimy and deplorable, so I would hate to cause issues for them in the game, as I have few in-game rivals now, and it was so long ago that we're mostly over it. There's no need to reopen old wounds that could trigger some kind of weird conflict of some form. Although conflict is the driver of any good story, and is bound to happen regardless of any video content I put out. Besides, some of these people have long since sold their characters or quit the game. Also, keep in mind that if I tell a story and you happen to be in it or cast in a negative light, you may be another person with a similar name altogether. Most adversaries I mention I will not be changing the names of, and I will intentionally narrate their sketchy behavior from my own perspective. Also, most of these stories occurred years or months in the past. There is a natural lag that will eventually catch up to current events, but slowly, as to protect my corp mates from too much attention too soon, as being EVE famous can certainly be a double-edged sword. Amazing, isn't it, that I feel the need to make this statement about a mere game? Thank you for bearing with me so far. As I conclude this forward, I will now begin the story of my ambitious alter ego, Maximilien Bonaparte. Having been diligent in my research, my mind was quickly blown by the depth of the game, and I became well aware of what I had the potential to become. My capsuleer name, Maximilien, strong, distinctive, and from Galente roots. The surname, Bonaparte, from the most feared but respected military leader of the modern era. I chose this name because in EVE, I had the potential to be my own version of Napoleon. I could rise to power, explore and control wide swaths of interstellar space, become the beacon of light for hundreds, even thousands of other spaceship flying nerds. I could forge a story and reputation that would echo in the depths of cyberspace for decades. Or could I? Because the first thing that all men of power need is knowledge. And in this new microcosm, I had absolutely none. I wasn't alone in this, as Rookie and Help Chat is a constant stream of questions and answers between new and experienced players, and it appeared that it was going to take a really long time to learn everything I needed to know to fulfill my great ambitions. In fact, I wasn't even clear about what my ambitions were, only that I was going to be something, some way. At least the NPC career agents that inhabited the local university's space station helped me to vaguely understand what is needed for various forms of money-making careers that I could start on. But I mean vaguely understand. You see, EVE has no manual. At that time, it didn't even have much of a flying tutorial like it does now. There were wiki articles created by the player community for your reading pleasure, and it had lots of channels that covered almost every topic. Clearly, no one person could know everything about every aspect of EVE Online. Other players were going to be key to helping me get along in my chosen career. I was afraid of joining a player corp though, because it would mean commitment to a particular career or playstyle, and I was just not sure what I wanted to do yet. Now this mattered because what I wanted to do would determine how I would adjust the training queue. EVE players do not level up in anything like other RPG MMOs. They have skill points, which are learned over time, very much like Neo in the Matrix. Now this meme here sums up how a Capsuleer learns skills, only back then there were no skill injectors for flash training time. You had to let the training queue run its course. Now this meant that not only was there a lot to learn about the game, my character would not be able to do a lot of things such as fly Attack 2 Cruiser right away, until all the required skills were finished training in the skill queue. Nowadays, it's much easier to figure out what to train for, but other more experienced players were going to provide essential guidance for my early development. What I found about EVE players is that although on average they were much smarter and more mature than in other MMOs, first-person shooters, and even real-time strategy games, they were also much more arrogant and egocentric. Most had an inexplicable sense of superiority that was irritating to no end. Sound like anyone you know? To hell with them all. I would not be joining their corp or alliance. Real leaders strike out on their own and become authorities in their own right. At this point, I realized that unlike other games, not only would I have to learn a lot of the basic mechanics, but I would have to wade through the wide swath of personalities who wanted to troll you, scam you, make you the work slave, kill you, and yes, even help you, and many of them did really help. I eventually endured the Epic Sisters of Eve mission arc. This was an NPC mission arc, and it was important for learning the game and picking up a few ships, skills, and assets. But I say endured only because I was anxious to get out there and really see how big and complex the EVE universe really was. I finally cut myself loose of these missions, got familiar with the in-game star map, and began to look around. I had heard wild tales of pirates in Lowsec and giant fights in Nullsec, where the Concord police would provide no protection at all from others. I had been told to be extremely careful in Highsec, much less Lowsec out there, and I would even get this pop-up in-game warning me before going through the Stargate that led to Lowsec. Most new players stayed away, but I would not. I had to get out there. I did some research using the wiki articles and forums about the best way to travel through Lowsec and Nullsec. I was told a simple Tech 1 frigate was normally fast enough to escape from any trouble on the gates. But I got a Galanti Tristan class frigate. I wasn't looking for a fight, I only wanted to explore. The first Lowsec system I came to seemed quiet, so I flew around, I landed on a gate, and this other T1 frigate shows up. A Rifter targets me, scares the hell out of me, and I warp off. The others were right. This T1 frigate could escape. In another instance, a similar frigate shot at me near an asteroid belt, but its guns seemed to miss me, and I, again, managed to warp out quickly. I had seen a few other pirates on gates, belts, and stations. It seemed that many of these pirates, which showed up as a terrifying red on my overview, were especially interested in killing a new player. Perhaps an easy mark, but the Tristan was great for exploring without being caught, which was all I wanted to do. I was able to make a circuit out of the northern parts of Galanti Lowsec space, even out into Nullsec space, and then safely back into high-sec space without losing my ship. Low-sec and null-sec were not the insta-death pits of hell most people in high-sec made them out to be. I had flown into the face of fear itself and come out unscathed. Perhaps I really could do something in this great universe. Perhaps my over-the-top name really could mean something. But first I had to get a job. I would have to find a way to accrue in-game wealth so that I could afford ships and modules, or eventually show off blingy mission or exploration fits like a lot of people did. At the time, I was unaware that one could simply buy a gameplex with real money and then sell it in-game for ISK or interstellar credits. Perhaps even if I were aware of this, I would have refused to do so. I had to conquer Eve the hard way to learn anything. I could have been an asteroid miner, but after the excitement I had just experienced, the idea of sitting next to rocks for hours for a few scraps of ore didn't appeal to me at all. I could be a missioner, but being told where to go, what to do, and working for an NPC seemed too much like a real job. No freedom, no self-determination, no thanks. I could PvP in faction warfare, and in fact enrolled in it for a little while, but this also limited my options and where I could go. I would have to try something that showed me the EVE universe, but still earned me ISK. I would soon find my ideal career path, and at the time I found it to be the most unrestricted, adventurous means of making ISK while still having fun. This bright and shiny career path would launch me further along into fulfilling my interstellar ambitions, and this will be the topic of my next video. Thank you for watching, Space Friends. Be sure to subscribe and like. As always, your contributions are welcome on Patreon. Until next time, and good hunting.